My name is Carolyn, and I talk to the spirit world. Travel with me to a dimension filled with love, light, and joyful surprises. Welcome to Carolyn's Psychic Playroom. Hello everyone, this is Carolyn Wilkins welcoming you to another episode of Carolyn's Psychic Playroom. I hope that you are out there doing well in my playroom so far, enjoying your life, having a great day. I'm here as always to bring you a wonderful guest that is working at the intersection of creativity and spirituality. And I have a very special guest to share with you today, someone that I had the pleasure of meeting when I took a magical trip to India 2 years ago. And I'm going to tell you a lot more about our special guest in a few minutes. But before I do so, I always like to offer a little tarot reading for you. This is a reading for the collective whenever you'll be watching this program. Usually, I would say this program is going to air mid to late July, so kind of thinking in that time frame. But even if you're watching it later on, it will still have a pertinence for you because this is my intention when I read. And I'm going to be using these wonderful cards. This is the Akashic Tarot, and I really enjoy these cards because they give a very nice, open-ended kind of reading that can apply to many different situations, which is perfect for what we're doing right now. And they also tend to bring also more of a soul level message. So a soul level message for my beautiful psychic playroom people today of what's going to be going on for them mid to late July and what do they need to know. Okay. I'm going to shuffle the cards and let's see what Spirit brings us as a message. All right, let's see. I'm spreading the cards out now and choosing one. The Master and the Artisan. See that? So what this says to me, this is a card about you in a place of study in your life. You've been studying something, you've been working on it, and now you're in a place where you're almost ready to bring that thing out into the world. I know that many of us during the pandemic actually kind of went back into the woodshed, as we jazz musicians say, and began new projects, started learning new things, studying. I know I did. I took about 5 courses last year online. And if you are one of those kind of people, this card tells me that your time of apprenticeship is coming to an end, and that very soon you're going to step into the role of the master. So whatever you've been learning or studying, and I do feel even if it's not literally you've taken classes and now you're ready to graduate, it could even just be the situation that the particular lessons that Spirit tasked you with during the course of this pandemic time for the last year, year and a half, you have now mastered and you are now ready to step into a new position of expertise and leadership. So that is a very beautiful message, actually, and I hope that you will find a resonance with this message. It's definitely telling us, psychic playroom peeps, to get out there, get moving. We are ready, we are qualified, and now it is time for us to share our gifts with the world. So, speaking of sharing our gifts with the world, I'm going to bring to this program now my wonderful guest, Lauren Rainbow. She is an amazing psychic. She is super creative. She's also a fabulous organizer of spiritual trips. She's a teacher. She's authored an amazing deck of mediumship tarot cards. She's just done all kinds of stuff, and you're going to learn about all of it in this interview coming up. So enjoy. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to have as my guest today on the Psychic program, Ms. Lauren Rainbow. The amazing. She's a medium. She's a teacher. She's a psychic. She's kind of a spiritual guru. She's a creative. She's an organizer. And she probably does a lot more things that we're going to find out about later. So please give Lauren a warm welcome. Woohoo!
Yay!
Welcome, Lauren.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn. I'm super excited to be here. I love it.
Awesome. So, as you know, this is a program in which I'm trying to both connect with people who are interested in spiritual pursuits of all kinds and people who are creative, because like myself and like you, I think that there's a lot of us out there. So I'm actually going to start from the present and work back. I think that you have recently released a new deck of tarot cards that you have created. Is that right? And could you just, tell me a little bit? I've always wanted to I use a lot of different decks. How did you kind of come up with the idea? Tell me a little about the deck and about the story of how you came to create it.
This is fantastic, Carolyn. And first, as I said, thank you for letting me be here. And so the mediumship training deck is the most unique deck that's been created so far of its nature. So as a developing medium, as we're always ongoingly developing, I created this deck with the dear John Holland, wonderful psychic medium as well. And a couple years ago, he came to me after we've taught I've been teaching mediumship for over 15 years. He's been teaching it even longer. And we've taught a lot of mediumship development classes together. And at the end of these classes, a lot of people ask us, how do we keep developing? How do we keep in practice? So one night he called me up and said, I have an idea to create a training deck about mediumship. And I would love for you to co-author this deck with me, because he thought, we've got some wonderful ideas and both unique vision and how to work with spirit and to develop your gift. So the mediumship training deck is 50 cards. They're beautiful. They're beautifully designed as well. And I'll pull one out here for you all. Look at that turn on switch is the one that just kind of showed up out of the deck, just to give you guys a quick example. And each card has meditation techniques or things to know about mediumship development, like understanding your clairs, understanding sitting in the power, as well as ways to turn on your connection to spirit. And on the back is a really good description of what each card means and some teaching techniques and development techniques. So this is where we created this beautiful idea to help people have a tool that they could take home. I love this one too. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? That they can take home, the soul connection. So it's a little bit, and then we love this one, the spirit communication process, right? From spirit, through spirit, to spirit, understanding how the connection to spirit works with us. So, and it's also great. You don't have to just be a medium. You can be psychic, intuitive, and still use all of the different steps in this deck and the wonderful teaching techniques that are in there. So yeah, that's where we got this really creative idea. And it was an amazing process actually to write a deck, to go through and work with the artist to create the imagery as well, and have a unique tool that you can use an ongoing way to pick a card a day. Or sometimes I use them as a tarot deck. It's so funny that you say that. Sometimes I'll pick like 3 random cards of what do you need need to focus on right now. And it gives you a little development practice for a week or so. So yeah, it's a really fun deck.
Oh, that's fabulous. So, did you, once you kind of had this concept of, I want to create a deck to teach mediumship, and just to back up a little bit from that, you already have been teaching mediumship for several years. So, I'm going to circle back to the deck, but now I want to back up and talk about you just as a teacher of mediumship, and even further, you as a medium yourself, because you are in the New England region very prominently known as a demonstrating medium, and have been for, gosh, many, many years. So tell me a little bit about how you first got started on this path of mediumship.
I love this story because part of my story, and should eventually make itself into a book quite soon, I hope, is very synchronistic, Carolyn. And I think that's so important for people who are on the spiritual path of any sort, is that you have been on the path since the day you were born, and you're taking those tools into the toolbox every step of the way. And sometimes the most unusual tools end up becoming a major part of your spiritual journey. And so, as a young child, we'll just go back to the real beginning. I was weird. I was different. Ironically, and we'll talk about some of the sacred travels. I was drawn to sacred sites as a young child. I loved seeing the pyramids. I was fascinated by Stonehenge and some of these really mystical places as a child, not really knowing yet that that was going to evolve into something. And it wasn't until my 20s that I really had my first encounters with spirit. I was a news journalist for a newspaper called The Messenger, which I always think it's been The Messenger. And my job at the time was writing about hard news. So death and dying was my day, but it was in the real life form. And so after a short time, I left that job and went into a whole different line of work and design. And I ended up living in a retired funeral home in Lowell. And like, the universe is just doing it. If you just follow the lines later, you go, oh, this has been the past. And the energy of that house had enough energy in it that it started to bring the energy of spirit to me in physical contact. So I would wake up every morning and feeling spirit at my bed, and being able to actually feel and sense the difference in each of these, frequencies that were coming to me. And then again, synchronistically, I met somebody out one time, and he's like, "You see dead people?" And I'm like, I kind of do. How do you know? And this is like early 2000s. So this is a long time ago. And we're just now starting to see John Edward on TV with Crossing Over. So it's just now starting to hit the mainstream a little bit. I was laid off from a great job on 9/10 of 2001. I woke up on 9/11, as we all did, to this amazing change in our lives. And then the very next day, I received a phone call from somebody who said, "Come to this metaphysical shop now in Manchester, where I live, and we're going to do a prayer for humanity and healing." And I'm like, we can do that? And so I walked in the doors of this shop. I was unemployed, and I spent 4 years deep diving into spiritual development. So I ended up working voluntarily for this place and doing other work on the side to have an income. And I was gifted so many opportunities to receive Reiki, Shambhala, healing energy like you wouldn't believe, for 4 years. And I was the only medium in the group, though, that was connected with spirit. So I was kind of developing that on my own before I even knew that you had mediumship classes and that we could actually develop this gift. I was doing it on my own and started demonstrating for spirit in 2004. So I was a little bit self-taught in the beginning. And then in the mid 2000s, I actually met John Holland in a workshop, and I put myself in an advanced one thinking I kind of know what I'm doing. And lo and behold, I was grateful that I could keep up. And we just connected, and I feel grateful because he's taken me under his wing. And I started demonstrating on stage in 2008 here in New England. So wow. I've been teaching mediumship since 2006, and all over New England and now all around the country. And it's just been a synchronistic journey. You can see how being a news reporter actually was one of the most powerful developments of my life, because it gives me the tool to interview spirit in a way that some people may not think to, because I've got that, development there. So your life is always guiding you. Every part of your diet, every dynamic of your life is so important because it's tools in your spiritual box. And if you're on the journey, don't stress, just go forward and let it all unfold for you. That's the one thing I could teach anybody, is just let the journey unfold for you.
That is beautiful. And I have to say, you can see Psychic Playmates how Lauren is going to be a great teacher because she knows how to tie together the threads, which might appear to be this thing over here and that thing over there and that thing, and you just wove it together. And then from that perspective, we go, of course she was meant to be a medium. That whole thing of learning how to report, how to look for facts, right? How to distinguish what is fact from what is opinion, all of that then comes into the mediumship, all that. So wonderful. And so now Lauren teaches classes, she has the deck. But tell me another thing that is amazing, and this was the way that I got to meet Lauren, which was Lauren also leads, and God willing, will lead again in a post-pandemic world. Lauren leads trips all over the world to sacred sites. So can you talk just a little bit about your work in that area?
And again, part of the synchronistic journey, Carolyn, you're so psychic too. You just kind of led beautifully into that. So if you remember at the beginning, I said as a young child, I was drawn to sacred sites. And, we're of the similar generations that you might remember back in the 80s, Time Life had put out a series of books on TV called Psychic Mystic Places, Psychic Phenomena. So as a child, I saw that commercial over and over again. And I kept telling my mom, I need that book, especially the Mystic Places book. So for Christmas, she got it for me. And for years, I carried that around. And until I was a teenager, I was just fascinated by all the sacred, energies in this book. Somewhere it disappeared in my life. And then I took my first spiritual journey to England in 2003 as a participant. And we were going to places like Glastonbury and over to Tintagel, to, the King Arthur's kingdom. And then I was in Peru in 2004 on a participant journey. And these were just people saying, you've got to come with me. So I was also gifted these opportunities and learning to say yes. When somebody says, I'm leading a trip to Peru, you need to be on a journey, here's the check. You say, okay, and Egypt is my core calling. It's one of the places that's the loudest in my world. And I was participating on a journey in 2010, and that was the life change right there. The others were also extremely amazing, but that Egypt journey just transformed my life. And in the process of these journeys, I was really connecting with these amazing tour guides and befriending them after the fact. And so in 2014, I went to Teotihuacan, Mexico, and I had the hardest journey of my spiritual life. I left Teo in such a disarray. My shadow side was kicking my butt, and I said, I'm never coming back here. But at the same time in Teo, I had the epiphany that I wanted to do these journeys one day. So Carolyn, as luck would have it, in 2017, I created my first sacred journey with some lovely friends of mine. And the first destination was Teotihuacan, Mexico.
Isn't that something?
So you kind of learn to conquer your fears and go back and do that healing work. And it was extraordinary. I went to India as a participant in 2018, where I now met my husband. So sacred journeys have been an amazing part and the fascinating piece. So we've been to Egypt, we've been to Peru, we've been to India, as you've come to India with me and Tony Stockwell. We will be continuing pandemic tours. Our first journey is booked for Egypt in January of 2022, already negotiating Peru. And I know as soon as India is in the right space, we'll be back there too. I cannot wait. And the last journey that I was able to pull off was actually in February 2020. So we went off as the pandemic was just starting, got back just in time for lockdown, and it was still a safe and fantastic journey. But the amazing synchronicity here, Carolyn, I got to tell you, is back in 2018, A friend of mine had found a copy of Mystic Places on their shelf. She
Oh,
felt guided that it had to come to me. She saw the book and she's like, I don't know why I got to give this to Lauren. So I picked up that book. I get emotional when I think about this. I picked up that book for the first time well over 20 years. And as I flipped through it, I have been to most of the sacred sites in that book. And one interesting piece is there's a picture of Edgar Casey sitting at his desk back in the day. And I have a picture when I was down at ARE of me sitting at Edgar Casey's desk, looking at the camera in the same position. I'm like, what?
yes.
So, it's really this part of us that has to be willing to trust always the weird, unique callings that we have sometimes, not always understanding how it's going to unfold. And I love all of my work. I love everything I do for spirit, but the journeys are by far one of the most, the part that just lights me up in a way that I can't even begin to explain. And it was the first piece of my life that really woke up when you think about it.
That is amazing. And I'm feeling such a message from you because actually, this is something that I have been challenged with, like many people, I think, particularly these days. And that is just to be able to trust that even though you can't see it and you don't know, like, who could possibly have predicted that the book you liked as a little kid would turn up so many years later, and that, it is amazing. And that's when we have to say spirit really is in control, even if we cannot always see it. And often we question, we complain, we're like, why this, why that, why isn't it going faster, why isn't it going this way or that way? And so that is a really important teaching there. So Lauren, as always, such a joy and a pleasure to talk with you today. Tell us, because I'm sure we've already given the listeners here a huge banquet of different things that you offer, your tarot deck, your teaching, your mediumship. I assume people can also schedule a one-on-one session with you if they would like to connect with their passed over loved ones. And you intimated the possibility of a book in the works. I did hear that. I assume that that'll be something that maybe in a year or two I will have to have you on again so that we can talk about it more. And then lastly, your travel opportunities. And I will say, having been on one of Lauren's trips, it was just the most amazing combination of a spiritual experience, but also, to be frank, fun tourism. Also, we stayed in really nice hotels, we ate great food, we got to see the Taj Mahal, we did kind of tourist things, but at the same time we were with a group of like-minded souls who were all about spirit. And she organized this trip with another medium, Tony Stockwell, who's a well-known British medium. And the two of them, there were sessions of mediumship. And I personally had like a spiritual epiphany on the trip. We went to the Ganges and bathed in I just could rave on and on. But point being, if this kind of travel appeals to you, or any of these offerings, where can people find you, Lauren? How can they get in touch with you?
It's super easy. I have a wonderful website at laurenrainbow.com. And I am on Instagram at Lauren Rainbow Medium. Same thing on Facebook, Lauren Rainbow Medium. And in all of these wonderful areas, we have all the information that you need. Like I said, the Sacred Journey for Egypt is already up there if you're ready to travel in January, and many more wonderful offerings to come. I'm also now mentoring for anybody who's looking to have some one-to-one support, whether it be mediumship development, development, psychic, intuitive development, or just spiritual navigation. I think one of the biggest teachings for me is, and it's in the story of the journey of my life, is navigating the spiritual world can be challenging. And sometimes we need a little bit of clarity on how to focus our energy and not feel like we aren't sure where we're going or how we're doing it.
That is so true. And I think actually that's a great place to leave it for today because the journey, as you have said, is ongoing.
Always.
We're always still learning. We're always still evolving. And you can see that from Lauren's story, how many phases and things she's gone through, yet she continues to grow and evolve. So thank you so much for being my guest. I'm just so overflowing with gratitude that you were able to do this today. And
I just love your energy too. So Carolyn, thank you as well. Gorgeous, gorgeous goddess. It's always such a pleasure to be in your beautiful energy and smile.
Oh, thank you. So I know that you enjoyed that interview with Lauren, and I'm going to put her information below. She's always doing something amazing. She does great dems with other well-known mediums. She travels the world. You name it, she's doing it. So please check her out on the link below. And meanwhile, once again, I thank you for joining me on this episode of Carolyn's Psychic Playroom. I will say, as I leave you, just to remind you about our card, the Master Artisan, and how this applies to your life. Those lessons that you maybe have struggled with for some time, things that you've been working on, they are coming to fruition, and soon and very soon, you're going to be stepping into your own position of expertise and leadership in some area. So be on the lookout for that. Meanwhile, as you well know, this is Carolyn Wilkins. Delighted to have spent this time with you in the Psychic Playroom. If you ever would like to receive a reading here on the program, or if you just would like to find out more about me in general, please visit my website, www.carolynwilkins.com. And meanwhile, I'm wishing you a wonderful, wonderful 2 weeks until I see you again. Bye for now.
Thoughts are things with the energy to make life better for you and for me. Touch the light. Oh, touch the light. Light, light, light. Light, light, light. Oh, light, light, light.